Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, GHA family and friends. We are back with another homework helper. This one is for 6th grade. It's going to be lesson 27. It's the problem set. So today, we only had 2 problems on the homework. So I am going to show you how to set them up rather than give you the answer this time. So I'll read number 1 and then I'll get it set up for you. So we got Mr. Yoshi has 75 papers. He graded 60 papers and then he had a student teacher grade the rest. What percent of the papers did each person grade? So they want to know how much did Mr. Yoshi grade and how much did the student teacher grade, but they want them in percentages, okay? So we're going to take our 75 and our 60. That's what they give us, and we got to figure out what to do with those 2 numbers. So if we want to find out, it's just like the example that I use the most when we're in class and we're talking about how many questions a person got right as to how many they got wrong. We're looking for a percentage. So we're going to take our 75 and we're going to divide it by 60. Notice, every time I say we're looking for a percent, we put the smaller number inside of the box, okay? So check this out. Put our 60 here and our 75. So this looks like something we cannot do because 75 does not go into 60. So our first step, always our first step is to do what? Add a decimal and add a 0. So now we can look at this number as 600 instead of 60, okay? So now you can see how many times does 75 go into 600, and that will give you the percentage of papers that the teacher graded. So once you calculate the quotient of this division problem, you'll find the percent of the papers that the teacher graded. So once you find that percent, we know all percents are out of 100. So you can take 100% right here and subtract your quotient here. So it's going to be in decimal form here. You're going to have to write it in standard form right here. And then you're going to have to subtract. And that will give you the percent that the student teacher graded. So one more time, we're going to put our 60 in the box and 75 out of the box. We know that 75 does not go into 60. So when we're dividing, our first step is to add a decimal and a 0. So this number is now 600. And we want to find out how many times can 75 go into 600. So you're going to have to divide that, find the quotient. When you find that quotient, it's going to be in decimal form. You need to take that decimal form and tell me what percent it is and put it here. So you can subtract it from 100%, and what we have left is the percent that the student teacher graded, okay? All right, next question. So now we're going to move on to number 2. It says Mrs. Bennett has graded 20% of her 150 students' papers. So how many papers does she still have to grade, okay? Let me read that verbatim. It says Mrs. Bennett has graded 20% of her 150 students' papers. How many papers does she still need to finish grading, okay? So we have our 2 numbers that we're going to work with, and it's pretty simple. So we know that our whole is 150. And so to find out what 20% is of 150, we need to multiply. So we're going to take our 150 and we're going to multiply it by 20%. Here's how you write 20% as a decimal. We've been doing this. So we have 20% and we know all percents are out of what? 100. So we know that that 2 needs to fall in the hundredths place. I'm sorry, in the tens place so that we can put it, so the 0 can fall in the hundredths place, I'm sorry. The number must end in the proper place value for you to say it correctly. So 20 hundredths, that means that this 0 needs to fall in the hundredths place. So we start with a decimal, we put our 2 in the tens place, and we have our 0 in the hundredths place. Now we can go ahead and multiply. So the way we multiply with standard algorithm is we take our 0 and we're going to multiply by everything up top. So we got 0 times 0, 0 times 5, and 0 times 1. Next, we're gonna need a zero spacer before we move over to the 2. So now we have 2 times 0, 2 times 2 times 5, and then 2 times 1. All right, then we can go ahead and add that up. And that's gonna give us the number that equals 20% of 150. Then you're gonna take that number that you found, the product, to our multiplication problem, and you're gonna subtract that from your 150. So after you find that answer, you're gonna set this up just like this. And that number is gonna help you solve this number sentence. 150 minus blank is gonna give you how many papers she still needs to grade, okay? All right, I hope this helps. Have a good evening.